Now joining us on the Deseret First Credit Union hotline. Maybe he agrees. I don't know.
Just missing it.
Steve Cleveland now joins us to talk BYU hoops. Steve, we heard you were at the gym this morning, so congratulations on that. Was that a resolution, or are you just awesome?
That's always a resolution. No, I'm pretty good. I had a little back surgery several months ago, so I'm kind of committed there so that I can walk and feel okay and run and not be too weary. So I'm hanging in there. But that is a resolution, absolutely.
So are you a New Year's resolution guy? Have you set something for 2019 for yourself?
You know what? I'm pretty goal-oriented, whether it's the first of the year or during the year. There's things that whether it's from my physical self or my emotional self or something in work, whatever the circumstances are, I'm always kind of setting and resetting new goals and trying to be a little bit better. And, it's kind of just what I've always done. Unfortunately, we fail more than we succeed sometimes, so you just got to get back up and keep trying again. But I love setting goals.
And that is a great segue into our next conversation, which is about BYU Men's Basketball. 8-7 right now. The Cougars started strong, but have kind of faded here near the end of non-conference play. West Coast Conference play begins tomorrow, kind of a new season, if you will. But what's your assessment of how BYU has played through non-conference play so far?
When I watch the games and I think back and I'm thinking to myself, this team could easily be 11-4, and we're probably having there's a different narrative about who they are and what they're doing. So I think the things that are most obvious, and I think they've been talked about, I think number one, they really struggle with the three-point line, a team that has three-point shooters, and many of them uncontested shots, and so that's a little bit problematic because this team does not have a great deal of size, and they have the ability to spread teams out and move the ball. They're a very unselfish team, but their three-point shooting has been not up to the expectations, I'm sure, of this coaching staff and this program overall. Second thing is the inability to be able to contain the dribble, and which turns into obviously open threes, allows teams to get passes at the rim. I just think defensively there has to be an improved resolve here. I'm sure there's not a lot of things you can do except watch film, and you're in the midst of playing 2 games. They've been playing sometimes 3 games in a week. But this team collectively, as a player-led team, especially has to get down and just say, we got to get stops. Pacific, we'll talk probably Pacific and St. Mary's in a minute, but in conference play, it becomes more half-court oriented. I mean, there'll be opportunities to run and play at a great pace, but at the end of the day, this time of the year, these 2 months, it's grind it out and get stops and win close games on the road. And they have an opportunity here to play 6 games: Pacific, St. Mary's, Portland, Santa Clara, Pepperdine, USF at home, and then St. Mary's again. And those are a lot of winnable games. Those teams don't look like Mississippi State, okay? This isn't the athleticism of UNLV or San Diego State or Nevada. So they've got a schedule in front of them that would allow them to turn this thing around pretty quickly if they'll defend.
Coach, when you look at a season as a whole or sometimes even individual games, based off of the personnel and what we know of these teams, you kind of go in with, you think you have a pretty good idea of how things are going to play out. What has been unexpected about this team, in your opinion, so far?
I think the one thing is just their ability to shoot the perimeter three. That I did not see that happening. I thought this was going to be a really, really good three-point shooting team. I love the chemistry of this team, and I think the other thing at times that the energy has not been there. And I think to be great defensively, you have to have energy. You have to be able to sustain it. They have depth. They've played a number of guys, but I just see too often. And just in the Mississippi State game, there were transition baskets after makes where people were wide open for threes or even layups or dunks at the rim. I just think the intensity level, the sustained intensity level, I expected that to be better, and I'm surprised that they haven't been able to sustain that and show that. And obviously they played a difficult schedule. This is a much more difficult schedule than they've played in any year they've been in the WCC. This just unfortunately happens to be the very first year in the WCC that there's more than just 2 or 3 teams that could possibly beat you.
Steve Cleveland is on the Deseret First Credit Union hotline talking BYU men's hoops. Conference play begins tomorrow. Steve, we were discussing this. Dave has this immaculate record of 20-plus wins in all 13 seasons which is incredible, made the NIT or the NCAA tournament. Do you think BYU is in danger of missing out on 20 wins or even the NIT this year?
I don't. I think 20 games is very doable. Well, first of all, the NIT is a different thing that we could talk about, but I think the conference schedule is going to be more difficult, especially on the road, playing at San Francisco, playing at Pacific, playing at places that, typically, you could get wins. But I do believe they can win 20 games. And I'll tell you why, because if for some reason they don't get to the NIT, they'll probably go to the CBI or the CIT, and you may be looking at 3 or 4 wins at the end of the year. So I wouldn't focus so much on 20 wins. What Dave's done over the past 12, 13, 14 years is incredible in the success that he's had. I don't think he's thinking about 20 wins. He's thinking about how we're going to beat UOP. But I do believe that they'll get to 20 wins, whether it happens during conference play or some postseason tournament. But I think that'll get there. I think more importantly is how do we go on the road right now and turn their whole season around and beat UOP and St. Mary's on the road. And UOP has improved. Towns is back, Tripp is back. You got a freshman point guard that had 23 the other night against UCI, Sandy. Gallinat, Dorsey, they've got some other pieces, but it's a really guard-oriented team. There's not great size. Nobody's going to protect at the rim. It's not a dominant rebounding team, but it is a team you're going to have to stay in front of. So I think that, and then obviously going to St. Mary's, a team that's 9-6. They played a much better schedule, but goodness gracious, they lost 5 of the top 6 scorers. And even though they're having success and they beat Bucknell and UNM, it's still a much more winnable game at St. Mary's than it's ever been.
How much can the fact that, you go into conference play and everyone says, okay, well, now what you did in non-conference, it's certainly there, but now it's a fresh start. Now you get an opportunity to start over to a certain extent. How much do you think that can benefit a team having that type of mindset that's, all right, the slate is clean, we're going into a new season? How much do you think that could benefit BYU as they're trying to snap the 3-game losing streak?
I think that you're looking at that as is your goal. It is a fresh start. That's what everybody's looking at. They've watched tons of film. They've been together as a team. They've lost some games that they should have and probably could have won, but they didn't. And now there's a resolve. I cannot believe that this team isn't going to be extremely motivated. And this program does have expectations. And every one of those players knows that. They play in front of 18, 19,000 people. They understand the culture they're in and what, the resolve should be for a team like this. And I think there were pretty high expectations for this team down the road. And I think that they're going to be determined. I think they're going to be focused. I think that they're going to defend better. I mean, those are what things I would expect. You have a fresh start, opportunity to put new wrinkles in, some new defensive sets, new out-of-bounds plays, things that you can do to maybe get a basket here or there. But I know Coach Rose. I know the staff. And I know that this has probably been difficult, but I also know that they've been doing it long enough and know that this is still a conference that is very different than a lot of those preseason games they played and where they were very competitive and had chances to win. They just got to win one. You go to UOP and you beat UOP at UOP, that just increased your chances to win at St. Mary's. And even though it's hard to play at both of those places, it's still, there's an opportunity there for both of these teams, but they are going to have to shore up some of the details and have a little more attention to detail at the defensive end.
We're talking with Steve Cleveland on BYU Sports Nation. Gonzaga, 7th in the country, 13-2. LMU, 12-2. San Francisco, 12-2, and in Lenardi's bracket as an 11 seed, by the way. San Diego, 11-4. Pacific, 10-5. What do you think of the West Coast Conference this year, and will BYU finish in the top 3 given how good the league is this year?
Well, I really like this team, and I've seen a number of these teams play. And you go to these teams, and LMU 12-2. It's not a great 12-2. You look at their schedule, but everybody else, San Francisco's for real, and they're well coached, very well disciplined, and USD, we know how good they are, and coming back off a really good year last year, and had a great win beating San Diego State, beat Drake. They've had some good wins, and Pacific hasn't had a lot of great wins, but they did beat Boise. A lot of the people that Pacific has beaten have been down a little bit, but the fact is, you look at St. Mary's, and they're 43 in Ken Palm. San Francisco is 44 in Ken Palm. I mean, these teams are ranked nationally in terms of where the experts see them. And so you're right. It is a much better schedule, and it's a place that you can't take any game for granted at home or on the road. So I think we've been waiting for this, though. I mean, this has been the problem with the WCC, where you couldn't get a second bid. I mean, the fact that they're talking about 2 bids from this league in the 1st of January, that's a really positive thing for the conference and a positive thing for BYU as well. But BYU has a lot of work to do to get back to that point. But they have a lot of season left, and they can turn this thing around and find themselves in the postseason.
Yesterday, Coach Rose, talking to the media, was discussing – it was brought up by talking about how well Yoli and TJ have been playing and that they've been the consistent scorers and guys kind of shouldering the bulk of the load. But he also mentioned that we also can't keep asking them to be the only 2 guys, that there needs to be contributions from others. Who do you think is in the best position or prime to be that next guy, whether it's the next guy or next guys?
Well, I mean, I think you have to include Jashir a little bit in that group. That's been pretty solid. He's done a lot of good things, averaging 11 a game. But, you know, the one thing that became very obvious at Mississippi State is when you go really small with your guards, it's hard to rebound out of it. They posting you up. It's difficult sometimes. But I think right now, I mean, the expectation should be that Celius should be the one that, you know, he had a good night the other night. Maybe he can build on that. He had 13 and 5. But he's a guy that's played a lot of basketball in this program. And they need him to step up and knock shots down. He's not a great defender. He loses his man in transition at times. Cannon is an intense guy, but again, you know, he's 6'1", and it's hard for him to have a presence defensively. I think if you look at this, I love Harding, and I don't want to throw too many expectations on him, but he's a guy that during conference play could have an impact. And I still believe that Nick Emery can have an impact. I know it's been hard, the transition, just being out for a year, but Nick's played in all these gyms. He's been in every one of these facilities. And I would look, for me, for Harding and Nick Emery to be the 2 that I would trust and think that could get this done. And hopefully Celius can be more consistent. I did love Worthington's effort. I love the fact that he got in the game and he competed and he can play in the half court. And I think Worthington will play more. I don't think Baxter's ready to play. I mean, he played 16 minutes the other night, got 1 rebound. And that's not a knock on him. He's young. He's off a mission. He's certainly athletic, but you need a lot more than that to be successful at this level than just being athletic.
It's taking some time, and we look forward to tomorrow, BYU at Pacific, pregame at 10 Eastern on BYU Radio. Steve, great breakdown. We appreciate it, and Happy New Year's.
Hey, Happy New Year to you guys. Thanks.
We'll see you in the gym. Thanks, Dave. Steve Cleveland on the Deseret First Credit Union Hotline. Deseret First, your values, your timeline, your financial future.